friends, it's Loree with the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com, and I'm here today to show you a really great recipe for sourdough cinnamon rolls. It's a super easy recipe, one I've made hundreds and hundreds of times, and I'm going to show you a couple variations today. We're going to make caramel rolls, so sticky buns, sticky sourdough cinnamon rolls, and then we're also going to make these cream cheese frosted traditional type sourdough cinnamon rolls. So you're gonna love both of these. You can make these with discard, you can make these with active starter, you can make them in a mixer, you can make them without a mixer, you can make them overnight, or you can make them really quick and stick them in the oven. There's lots of different variations, and again, all of those variations and tips and tricks will be on the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com in a full printable recipe that you can download and print, put in your recipe box, and have for future. So come along, let's get started. I'm gonna back this video up till last night when we first started and show you how I did mix these up in the mixer just because of time. And then we're gonna carry on and I'll show you this morning how we baked these, how this is something super simple that you can do anytime and your family is absolutely gonna love it. All right, so I'm gonna mix up a double batch of these. You can mix these up in a mixer, or you can just mix them up in a bowl and do a few stretch and folds or just a few kneads on the, knead it just a little bit, like every 15 to 30 minutes for a couple of hours in the evening, and then roll them out and put them in a pan and let them rise overnight. But tonight, because it's late and I need to get to bed, I'm just gonna mix these up in my mixer. I do this quite often while I'm doing the dishes or something in the evening. And I'm gonna mix up a double batch because I want to show you how to make them with cream cheese frosting and also with like sticky bun, like a caramel frosting. Okay, so this is a double batch. You're gonna get the single batch recipe on wagonwheelhomestead.com. That's my blog, and you can get a printable recipe there along with lots of other sourdough recipes. All right, so 2 cups of warm water, and here is my running over happy sourdough starter. Now, you can use discard as well. I've made these many times with discard. Like if I forget to feed my starter and I think, oh man, I really want to make cinnamon rolls for breakfast, but I forgot to feed my starter. I will just pull this starter jar right out of the fridge. I keep this in the fridge all of the time so that I can quickly make lots of discard recipes. And I'll just pull it out and make these out of discard, and they're just fine. They turn out just fine. They take a little bit longer to raise, but that's okay because we're gonna let them raise all night anyway. So this is not a big deal, okay? So this is a double recipe. So that was 2 cups of water and 2 cups of sourdough starter. And now we're going to put in 1 cup of melted butter, and I'm gonna get that melted. And then we're gonna also put in a cup of sugar. And you can use less sweetener if you want. And you can also use honey, anything like that. I'm just using sugar because it's what I have handy. And then I'm also gonna get the butter, and we'll get that in here. All right, so putting in my melted butter. Then you're gonna put 2 eggs per recipe. So we're gonna put 4 eggs in here. And if you want, like say you wanna make these last minute, say company came to your house and you need cinnamon rolls all of a sudden, you can mix this up and you can put a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of baking soda in, and then you can roll these out, put them in the pan, and put them right into the oven. They will not have the long fermentation benefits of the sourdough starter, taking over all the phytic acid and the gluten in the flour if you bake them right away. So that's why I usually make these the night before and let them sit out, but if you have to mix these up right away, just add baking powder and baking soda, and that will help them to rise, and then you can have cinnamon rolls really, really fast. So this is my Redmond real salt that I keep in my pantry in bulk, adding a ½ teaspoon per recipe, and then we're going to mix it up. Put my lid on, and we're gonna add 4 cups of flour per batch of cinnamon rolls. want to make sure that you knead it for at least 5 minutes, really get the gluten developed well. Then I'm just going to dump it right out onto the counter here with a little bit of flour. And I'm making 2 batches, like I said, but I'm just going to roll them out at the same time. I'm just going to put them in 2 different pans so I can put 2 different kinds of topping on them. And if your sourdough is really super hydrated, so if it's runny, if it's not very thick, you may have to add just a little bit more flour. What you want to do when you use a mixer for sure is you want to mix it and add a little bit more flour if you need to, until the dough is coming away from the sides of the bowl. So you don't want it super sticky, but you don't want it super dry either. So you just have to, you feel free to add a little more flour if you need to. It just really depends on your sourdough starter. And either way, it's gonna turn out fine. So I'm just gonna roll this out. And it's gonna be super long just because we're doing 2 batches. And try to make it kind of a rectangle. You know, it doesn't really matter. Rolls are rolls, especially sweet rolls, and they always taste so good that people eat them even if they're not quite perfect. So now what I have is I mixed up a mixture of melted butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon. And you can spread those on here separately, but I like to have them mixed up because these will stick together. The rolls will stick together when you roll them up a lot better. And so this is per recipe, it's about a 1/2 cup of butter, 1.5 cups of brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon. And again, I'll put that all in the recipe on the blog. So I'm just gonna put this on here as best you can. You could also use cane sugar instead of brown sugar if you wanted it to be a little more natural. You can get that from Azure Standard. Okay, and once it's fairly evenly spread out, clean off my spoon, we're just gonna roll these up. This is just the most beautiful dough. It's so much fun to work with. You get right to the end, then you can just pull the last piece over the top. Just kind of pinch the sides together as best you can. Then these are my 2 cast iron skillets I'm going to use, and I'm just going to rub them down with a little bit of butter. Now, if you don't have cast iron, you can certainly use 9x13 pan. You know, use anything that you have. I'll tell you that sourdough loves cast iron because of its even heat and just the way that it cooks. So sourdough and cast iron were meant to go together. So, but don't let that stop you. Just put some cast iron on your Christmas list or your birthday list or your wish list if you don't have any right now, because you're gonna love to learn how to cook in cast iron. And of course, you know, they're pans that last forever. So that's an amazing blessing. And then I'm just gonna take a bread knife and slice these. Now, some people like to cut the rolls with string. You certainly can. I find that this works really easy for us, and it doesn't seem to bother the rolls at all. The reason for cutting with string sometimes is so that the rolls don't smash together, but again, I've not ever found that to really be a problem. I just stick them in here however they go. You can measure this out and make, you know, exactly 12 rolls per batch if you'd like. But again, My family will eat these this way, and they're gonna be just beautiful. Here's our 2 pans of cinnamon rolls, and it took us less than 10 minutes to mix them up and put them in the pan. They're gonna raise like this. I'm gonna cover them with some plastic wrap to keep the moisture in. You can cover them with a tea towel if that's all you have, but they're not gonna raise probably quite as well, or they may dry out on top a little bit, so it's best if you can use like a beeswax wrap on top or plastic wrap, either one. You're gonna let them rise overnight, and then in the morning, get up and put them in the oven. What I like to do is have my oven on set on time bake, so when I wake up in the morning, it's hot, and I just stick these right into the oven. They bake at 375 for 20 to 25 minutes, and then in the morning, I'm gonna show you how we put caramel sticky buns, make caramel sticky buns with one batch, and how we make cream cheese frosted cinnamon rolls with the other batch. So they're gonna be super good. There's lots of things you can do with these cinnamon rolls. There's lots of ways that you can shape them, but for now I'm just gonna show you this, and that'll get you off and running with sourdough cinnamon rolls. And once again, you can make these with active starter, that's my preferred, but you can also make them with discard. You can make them the night before, you can make them right before you need to bake them, just by adding a little baking powder and baking soda. There's so many options, and you're gonna absolutely love these. So I'm gonna cover them with plastic wrap, and I'll see you in the morning. Okay, and then the last thing I did last night, which I forgot to show you, so I'll just show you now, is I made the caramel for the 1 pan of rolls. So I just put a stick of butter, so 1/2 cup of butter, in with 1.5 cups of brown sugar and 1/3 cup of water. And I just brought it to a boil and boiled it gently for 1 minute. And it just makes a really nice caramel that now we can pour over one of these pans of rolls, and we're gonna just stick it right in the oven. You wanna do it the night before so that it is cooled off when it's time to stick it into the oven. So I'm just gonna pour it right over the top, and this is gonna make caramel sticky buns, which are my personal favorite. The rest of my family prefers, like the cream cheese frosting, which we're gonna make here in a minute, but we're gonna get these started baking. These are gonna be so delicious, as usual. And they will bake down in there and be nice and gooey. You could put nuts on it as well if you prefer. Now we're just gonna stick these both in the oven. Here's the other one. See, they rose just fine on their own, without any help from yeast or anything else. Now we're gonna turn the oven on for 25 minutes. Okay, and then we're gonna make the cream cheese frosting. I'm just gonna use the same pot so I don't have to dirty another dish. I try to do that all the time. This is my homemade cream cheese. It's just plain yogurt that's been hung overnight and strained out until it's really, really thick. You can use cream cheese from the store as well, but I try to make all my own dairy products from our Jersey cows. So I'm gonna just put in about 8 ounces, so you don't have to measure, it doesn't have to be super exact. Then we're gonna do 1/2 cup of cream, again from my dairy cows, so this is fresh cream. 1/2 cup of cream, we'll turn on that burner. And 1/2 half a cup of real maple syrup. A couple tablespoons of vanilla, and we're just gonna bring it together on the stove. And get it nice and softened and blended together. And I usually use a stick blender to blend this all up. There it is, nice and smooth, creamy and delicious. I'll also put a recipe on the blog for my favorite cream cheese frosting that I make with powdered sugar. So if that's the route you want to take, you can, but this is a much healthier version. It's much better to feed your kids before school if you don't want them super wild from sugar. So anyway, I'll just let this sit here until the cinnamon rolls come out of the oven, and then we'll pour it right over the top. All right, and here's the caramel rolls, and what I like to do with them, if I can, very carefully, is flip them out onto a platter so that the caramel is on the top. Okay, and there they are. And so you just let them cool a little bit, and then you have caramel sticky buns. And like I said, you could have put pecans down on the bottom, and then when you flip it over, or you could even stick toasted pecans on now if you wanted to. Okay, and then here's our regular cinnamon rolls and our maple cream cheese frosting that we made. We're just gonna pour that over the top and spread it on, let it soak in just a little bit. It's gonna be so delicious. And there they are, all done. So we're gonna plate these up for breakfast, and they're gonna be so, so good. Along with me today as we made these caramel sticky buns and also regular cream cheese sourdough cinnamon rolls. So I hope that you will enjoy both of these recipes, that you'll do lots of different variations. Again, you can find the recipe over on the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com. And if you like this kind of content, be sure to hit like and subscribe as we teach you ways to grow a simple, sustainable life by growing and preserving your own food, cooking from scratch, sourdough and home dairy, all the food things, all the homesteading things. So we look forward to seeing you in our next video.